I'm Roxana Markoch, curator of photography at the Museum of Modern Art, and I collaborated on this exhibition titled Geometry of Motion 1920s, 1970s with my colleague Klaus Biesenbach, chief curator of media. We started from the premise that, photography and film actually have lots in common in terms of the basic elements. Motion, duration, projection, reflection. And so we took this idea of cinematic experience, which really comes from the French cinematique, which translates also very literally as geometry of motion, as a point of departure for this show, and then sort of divided the exhibition into two halves. One that focuses on the 1920s and one on the 1970s, primarily because these are two periods, historical periods, where artists are very much looking at the experimentation of projection and the sort of transformation of the art object from a static image to fluid light projection. And so during the 1920s, there is the sort of emergence of a new generation of artists known as the Neue Optik, or new vision artists, that includes people who are in this room, in this gallery space, such as Lissitzky, László Moholy-Nagy, Hans Richter, Marcel Duchamp, who in turn have their own collaborators, such as Viking Egling, for instance, or Man Ray. And they are producing a lot of non-narrative type of films, abstract films, or even they are sort of changing the relationship between objecthood and space. The 1970s, it's very interesting, is the advent of conceptual art, also the period when artists are moving outside of the confines of the gallery space into the world. And so someone like Robert Smithson, with his major work of the spiral jetty made in 1970, presents a vision again, not as something static, but as something itinerant and also filmic. You see him in the film that he has shot from a helicopter. Both you have an understanding of what it means to view an object, a sculptural object, while flying, while in motion, from a very high distance, which is very different on how you would see a sculpture on the ground, which will seem actually incomprehensibly high while being on the ground. So he offers sort of a conceptual understanding, almost artificial perspective of a natural landscape, and also an understanding of peripatetic movement in space. Finally, there are a whole group of artists that are influenced by structuralist filmmakers such as Hollis Frampton or Paul Charitz, such as Anthony McCall in London, who begins to experiment with what is known as the solid light films. Again, these are films that are not films understood in the traditional sense of the word. There is no narrative, there is a deconstruction of the film. In this exhibition, we have a beautiful piece which is called Miniature in Black and White. This is a slide projection that presents 81 slides that are shown at maximum speed in 81 seconds. So it's one slide per second. It's almost like a flashlight. It sort of aggresses the eye. And you are looking straight into the projector and see these very abstract shapes as they shift. And the more you stare at the images, the more after images are created. So again, the eye becomes extremely active. It becomes like a projector because it creates its own images and after images. Anthony McCall had a great influence on other artists, particularly sculptors such as Richard Serra or, for instance, Gordon Matta-Clark, who is also included in this show. And finally, there is the work of Robert Irwin here included. He is one of the main exponents of the light and space movement in California in the 1970s, together with James Turrell and Maria Nordman. They have created works and installations that again materialize something that is completely immaterial, light. And this basically sort of sums up this small exhibition that in a way also functions as a historical context for another exhibition that is yet to come at the Museum of Modern Art, and that is the survey show of the Danish Icelandic artist Olafur Eliasson.